ako, yung sulat sa akin ng taong bayan ay sulit. Kaya, yung 600B na budget, bawasan natin. Target 150B. Mabawasan natin ng 150B. At least, para sa lahat ng mga miyembro ng 20th Congress, sulit ang isinahod sa atin ng taong bayan. So again, I want to preface before I formally begin that Congress is improving on the net that was submitted by DPWH. And the focus of my remarks will be on the improvement that should be made on the work of DPWH. Okay. We haven't started yet, right?
Yes, sir.
But we can start na din po, Kong.
Okay.
You can on the mic na.
Magandang araw po.
Okay, so good morning po everyone. Ako po yung bunot today for moderating this press con. Siguro po first, Kong Leandro Leviste, your opening statement po.
Yes, magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Actually, medyo mahaba ang aking opening statement dahil inihanda ko na po ang list of information that I would like to share with the public today. Una po sa lahat, nandito po ako dahil trabaho ko na gawin ang lahat para sa aking distrito, tulad ng ibang mga kongresista. At marami po akong nakikitang mga dapat na reforma sa ating sistema. At bilang isang congressman, layunin ko na makakuha ang aking distrito ng fair share ng budget at ang ibang mga distrito ay dapat mabigyan din ng fair share. At pangalawa, gusto ko lang din naman ibaba ang presyo ng DPWH projects. Sinabi ko po ng 25% para maiwasan ang posibleng 150 billion pesos ng kickbacks. Kaya anuman ang susunod kong sasabihin ay nasa konteksto na may solusyon naman. At sinasabi ko po ito para sana tumulong si DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon sa mga solusyon na ito. My first point today is that contractors are part of writing the DPWH budget and allegedly pay DPWH officials for budgetary allocations from the non-allocable or so-called leadership fund that is prepared by the DPWH. And as I will say more about later, I heard that Secretary Dizon and his team have connections with contractors and in the interest of transparency should disclose all of their connections with contractors and any knowledge that they have on the possibility of kickbacks from DPWH projects. So that is the main point that I would like to bring up today that I will say more about later, that I am asking Secretary Vince Dizon to disclose any and all of his and his team's connections with current, past, or potential future contractors of DPWH projects. Because of the scrutiny on insertions in Congress and Senate, insertions have now moved to the National Expenditure Program that is supposedly prepared by only the DPWH. And according to flood control hearings, contractors submit lists of projects to DPWH and payments are made as early as when they appear in the NEP, on the presumption that the district engineering offices will award the contracts to the contractors that pay for the projects to be inserted by the DPWH officials into the NEP. When DPWH was writing the 2026 NEP, my staff received Viber messages that I can ask that we share on the screen from my former district engineer. The Viber messages read, ito po yung isang 1B na for funding. Hiningi po ng isang contractor na tutulong magpa-release ng funds. Above is the list of proposed projects worth 600 million for a certain contractor. Yan ma'am ay dadalhin sa inyo at siya daw ang mag-aasikaso. Ito nga pala, dati na ding may nag-aasikaso ng pondo, pero wala pa namang bumabalik sa amin na letter kung denied or hindi. Contractor sa regional office ang nag-request niyan dati, ma'am, last year pa. And what we found out when the net came was one of the non-allocable projects of DPWH in my district. Perhaps kasama ito sa leadership funds na binanggit ni former Secretary Bonoan sa Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing. The point being that if this was how the NEP was written in my district, na bago lumabas ang NEP, pinakita sa akin ng isang DPWH official na ito ay ipapasok ng contractor at yan ay lumabas at nakatag as non-allocable, meaning hindi po ito proposed ng congressman. Ito po ay hindi nga magagalaw, kaya nga non-allocable ang tawag ng congressman. Ito po ay ipinasok ng DPWH na may pruweba tayo na galing sa contractor, baka sa ibang distrito, ang mga contractors ay may mga insertions din sa 2026 budget, which if we tie it together with the testimonies in the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearings na sabi daw nagkakaroon ng mga kickbacks paglabas pa lang ng NEP, it could well have been that there have already been projects that have been paid for in the 2026 NEP. And you could surmise there would be even more in other districts because the contractors, of course, don't have history dealing with me and would tend to put their projects in a district that the congressman will not interfere in rigging their bids in favor of them. And while I was newly elected, I was approached by people saying that contractors were in talks with DPWH to download or magpababa ng mga proyekto sa distrito ko. I have also heard that many of the projects being implemented from the 2025 budget in my district were also inserted this way, again, not through congressional insertions, but mga ipinasok ni regional director, ni USEC, baka mga kaibigan ni secretary. This, I think the public should know, is how the DPWH budget, at least in my district, was written. Based on what I was told, may mga contractor na may mga kakilala daw sa DPWH na nagpapasok ng mga projects. At again, weaving it together with the Senate testimonies, meron konsiderasyon. Kaya ipinapasok mga ito ng DPWH at ang mga contractor na yon ang nakakakuha ng mga kontratang ito. And that it's the officials in DPWH who have been reportedly engaging in these transactions. And that the consequence from a policy standpoint is because my district will not allow rigging of bids, then this portion of the budget, which is non-allocable, which the DPWH can put in districts of their choosing, will not be put in districts like mine, where there is no rigging of bids. And so the tendency would be for these projects to be parked in the districts where they have the highest confidence that they can earn the most if their objective, which they can disprove, and we would be glad if they could disprove, is to earn from these projects. So this happened in the 2026 NEP that was submitted in July, in the time of Secretary Bonoan. And Secretary Dizon submitted a revised NEP in September of 2025 for 2026. And last Friday, the media asked him what changes he plans to make about the 2026 budget, and if it is safe to say that the 2026 budget is not yet stripped from insertions and leadership funds. And Secretary Dizon said, "My problem with the 2026 budget is it's no longer in our hands. And to be quite frank, I had zero part in that budget at all. I came in, it was already submitted. I was given a week to review it to submit a new budget. For 2027 moving forward, we're definitely going to review all these processes, all these formula, because these cannot continue. And I'm hoping that Secretary Dizon will use the time available to revise the 2026 budget, particularly the projects that can be traced to the non-allocable leadership funds, that he knows what they are because those files are available in DPWH because of the evidence that there has been some undesirable process for how projects were inserted into the DPWH budget with the input of interested contractors. So we have established that contractors insert projects into the DPWH NEP. And the question then is why? What motive would someone have not to touch these projects? I would add further that Secretary Dizon also added many new projects in the NEP, replacing some projects from Secretary Bonoan, and that information on these projects were committed to be shared in congressional budget hearings, but these have not yet been shared. Secretary Dizon said that as I will show in a video later, these projects would be disclosed. But if I can share the...
We will give you the copies, Madam Chair, no, of this. No, I don't have them off the bat right now, but we will provide the details to the Honorable Committee po. Yes, I think that will be readily available naman po. Just to make it very clear, breakdown per legislative district for the 2024 General Appropriations Act, the 2025 General Appropriations Act, and the current submission for the 2026 National Expenditure Program per legislative district. We will comply, Madam Chair. According to our staff po, wala po.
So, first, there were requests by members of Congress for certain budgets to be disclosed. What the past budgets of Secretary Bonoan were, and what the new budget, including that proposed by Secretary Dizon, were. And these are actually derivable from the publicly available data. But for some reason, even after these are publicly committed that they would be shared, they have not yet been shared. And would be very important, actually, for members of Congress to see if the budget was equitably distributed and if there is a large allocation in some places, and if we can also see the data on if those are non-allocable and who is the proponent of those non-allocable projects, then the public could help in scrutinizing if there is some potential interest by some parties for certain projects. And I actually have here the data that was requested by some members of Congress. And again, they have this data. They have given me this data before. Others can also derive this data, and others can also derive it without needing any special processing. So it's curious why they're not sharing at least the data on the budget per legislative district. I believe the Senate budget hearing of DPWH is next Monday, and I don't want to be the one that shares this data. I'm asking that before further deliberations on the DPWH budget, Secretary Dizon will do what he said he would do and share this publicly available derivable data on the budget per legislative district. But that beyond that, he also share the data on what is allocable and non-allocable in each district's budget. Because as was seen in the slide on the screen earlier, each congressman is told what projects in his district are allocable, meaning he can amend them, and what projects are non-allocable, which, again, I'm putting the spotlight on, is what DPWH has control over and should actually be subject to more scrutiny. And again, the question is, why is there lack of a transparency on sharing of this data? Perhaps because when this data is shared, along with who are the proponents for certain projects, then the public will have more leads on potential issues on those given projects. And again, it's an open secret that there is lobbying, or one can say more generously, that there are proposals for the benefit of districts by politicians. None of us, of course, will deny this because that's what each elected representative tries to do for their constituents, to try and bring in projects for their district. For some reason, though, the DPWH denies that politicians make proposals that are accepted in the NEP, even though former DPWH officials admit it, but that, at least if we can play this part of the video, the last part of the video.
Please,
The last part.
Madam Chair. Appropriations Act and the current submission for the 2026 National Expenditure Program per legislation.
In this last response, there's a denial.
According to our staff po, wala po silang alam, no? na merong ganong mga proyekto.
So again, there has been a denial that politicians submit projects into the NEP, because maybe if they admit it, then they'll have to reveal who is the proponent of these projects in the NEP. But if there's so much scrutiny on insertions in Congress, we should be even more closely examining insertions in the NEP, because doing so might be for some purpose to avoid scrutiny in Congress. And again, even members of Congress don't deny that they try and do this for their own district. As I said in my prefatory speech, it is my job to bring in projects for my district. So it's just in our interest to propose that our district be given more support by the national government. What we're asking for is transparency on the requests that were approved, and then once we see that data, then there could be more scrutiny on why those particular requests were approved. So, moving on, the question is, what is the potential motive for someone not to disclose all this data? I mentioned earlier that Secretary Dizon's NEP added many new projects. You can see that there was a reduction in the flood control budget of Secretary Bonoan to Secretary Dizon, of course, by a very big amount. But there was additions in asset preservation and also in multipurpose buildings in a total amount of around 75 billion pesos that was also raised by other members of Congress. Perhaps those were erratas of certain members of Congress, but it would also be helpful if Secretary Dizon could give a breakdown between the July NEP of Secretary Bonoan and the September NEP of Secretary Dizon. What are the changes? And if he could kindly explain the changes between the two NEPs. So, to go to the main point. As to the potential underlying undercurrent for all this, I've heard talk, including in Congress, that Secretary Dizon and his team have connections with DPWH contractors, and that certain members of Secretary Dizon's teams are, in fact, contractors. I am not the authority on this subject, but I think that it would be good to give Secretary Dizon the opportunity to explain. Of course, everyone knows people. So to say that Secretary Dizon knows DPWH contractors is not to say that there's anything inappropriate happening. Now, if he or members of his team have some proven interest in companies with DPWH contracts, and what I heard is that it's not him who is a contractor, it's a member or members of his team who are contractors. And how exactly, I am not the authority. But I have been told that this is actually known by many in Congress now. Then the question is, if it's true that new appointees in DPWH have interests in companies that do business with DPWH, are we sure that there will be no conflict of interest in the awarding of contracts under the new leadership at DPWH? And why then has this not been previously disclosed? Secretary Dizon is very accessible to the media, and I hope then that we can ask him to disclose all of his and his team's connections to DPWH contractors, and if he thinks there are still kickbacks in DPWH, and if he has ever discussed or been offered kickbacks, and if he could share this so that we can all work together to stop the practice of giving kickbacks. Again, you can't avoid knowing people, but if these people have contracts with DPWH, and in fact will win contracts in the months and years to come in DPWH, and that there is a reported history of kickbacks being given in DPWH, then I think it deserves more public scrutiny, especially because there are plans to decrease the projects being bid in the district engineering offices and move procurement to the regional or even central office. Could it be that these reforms in DPWH will not actually reduce corruption, but will transfer the benefits of it to another level or another group of parties or contractors? And again, I don't want to say this too authoritatively, but someone actually just told me before I arrived here now that not only did one person tell me that they heard that members of the team are actually contractors, that other members of the team have already been meeting with contractors outside of DPWH at may hinihingi na daw. So maybe Secretary Dizon can also check with all of his appointees who are the contractors, if any, that they have met since their appointment and what they discussed in those meetings. It's actually quite tragic because I know that so many people have so much hope for Secretary Dizon's leadership in the DPWH, as do I. And I hope then that he can be transparent on, even if it's not from him, but any attempted offers, any opportunities that he has had to talk with contractors or for his team to, any offers for kickbacks that have been made. So, again, this is all in the context of there being a history of this also happening in DPWH. And again, multiple sources telling me and saying that this is known already by many. And I will say one more thing related to my previous advocacy to lower prices in DPWH. If Secretary Dizon will lower prices by 25%, I don't even need to ask if he has any interest in DPWH contracts, because anyone who will lower prices by 25% is showing that he is against kickbacks. So I hope that Secretary Dizon will be a hero and lower prices by 25% and show that he is against kickbacks in DPWH. My other point a while ago is that there's also more information that he can share, and I already said that earlier. And again, I hope that, number one, the past budgets per district be disclosed, and the 2026 budget per district can be disclosed, so that we can see what districts have not gotten their fair share of the budget. And again, a while ago, the video showed that Secretary Dizon said wala po silang alam na meron ganong mga proyekto na insertions of senators or other politicians. And it is an open secret that politicians do give lists. Again, I would want more projects in my district, as would any congressman, not for a personal benefit, but for the district's benefit. And I think that it will be good to be transparent then, because if I were granted my request, it would be for additional classrooms. But if there are requests before for flood control projects, and then asphalt overlay, or overpriced solar streetlights, let's just be transparent on what people have requested that has been granted in the budget. Because again, Secretary Bonoan admitted that there is a leadership fund. To add, out of the 600 billion pesos DPWH budget, there's allocable and non-allocable. And if I'm not mistaken, there's around 400 billion of allocable. So there might be close to 200 billion of non-allocable, which the district representatives might not know who is behind. So let's see what this non-allocable is. And that, again, there's even some data that I have here. There's other data that others also have. Much of this can also be pieced together from other publicly available sources, and there's really no reason for this not to be disclosed, because others anyway have it. I just hope that Secretary Dizon be the one to share it, and preferably before the Monday Senate budget hearing. And just to make another point, Congressman Toby Chanco also recently asked the Committee on Appropriations to disclose the projects submitted by congressmen to the House APRO Committee. I highly respect Congressman Chanco, and he is really the source for much of what the public knows about congressional insertions in the DPWH budget. And what I'm adding is that the insertions begin in DPWH, but to Congressman Chanco's point, every congressman has been given a baseline amount of insertions, or we now call them amendments, of 150 million pesos. This is an amendment. There's nothing irregular about it, and this is part of the job of members of Congress to identify needed projects. So there is a 150 million peso per congressman amendment into the DPWH budget. And some have been given more and some much more. And Congressman Chanco's point is that the Appropriations Committee has the list of what each member of Congress has submitted and has been granted, including of Congressman Chanco says party list representatives. So if you can see what a district representative has in his district, you can also see what a representative that it goes beyond the district has submitted. And there's certain cases where these representatives have large budgets, which are worth looking into, and in some cases where they also have ties to the contractors that end up getting awarded these projects. If I can just share the following that affects my district. Certain contractors have allegedly cornered large allocations in the DPWH budget, and if a district representative does not allow rig biddings and does not accept kickbacks, then these budgets might be allocated to other districts. And again, if DPWH shares the data on who are all these proponents, then I hope that would help also clamp down on the potential issues in this system, and that we don't have contractors paying for budgets to be allocated to certain districts. If I could give an example, CWS party list representative Edwin Garjola is said to be able to allocate large budgets for roads of DPWH, especially in Batangas. I have information that Congressman Garjola is the proponent for road projects in my district in some way. And a company owned by his family, based on SEC corporate documents, S-Ang Construction, is the contractor for some of these projects, which can be linked to him as CWS party list representative. And another company that he is connected to, Readycon Trading, is the contractor for other projects that people, including DPWH, have told me were amendments into the budget facilitated by Congressman Garjola. He has been said by others here in Congress to me as being a big buyer of project budgets and was also very close to Secretary Bonoan. Some of these road projects in my district are, according to technical audits, substandard, and the Sangguniang Bayan of Tui, Batangas even complained that the road that he is building was asphalt, whereas because it is a flood-prone area, it should be concrete. But the DPWH told me that Congressman Garjola was the proponent for this project and specified the program of works that this project be asphalt. I was told by other technical experts because that would make it more lucrative. And that DPWH can disclose this data so we can see the link between the proponent and the contractor. Some of these projects might no longer be under the name of the proponent, but it would be a good start to just release the available data on who is the proponent behind the projects that are alleged to have been amended into the budget by Congressman Garjola. And again, this is a current subject. One, the 2025 projects are still being implemented. And if we have found out that they were amended by a certain congressman who has also links to the contractor that DPWH awarded to, I think that would be worth someone looking into. And second, that Congressman Garjola continues to have influence over the DPWH budget as the representative of CWS party list, with many connections that pertain to the DPWH budget. Again, I would like to repeat that based on the flood control hearings, the non-allocable budget under the leadership fund that were reportedly sold should be looked into, and that it's around this time that the House General Appropriations Bill has been approved, that advance payments for projects are paid. It's very important that we get to the bottom of who is proposing these projects that have been accepted into the recently approved budget, so that we can trace, just like in the example of Congressman Garjola, if they are connected to the contractors that are eventually awarded these projects. Again, given prices have not yet been lowered on DPWH projects, one can surmise that the system of paying kickbacks continues in DPWH, and that now that the HGAB has been approved by Congress, ang bigayan ng mga kickbacks ay nagsimula na, o nagawa na, o tutuloy na. And that including those that would be paid to the DPWH officials who inserted projects into the NEP, which is why we're advocating that we revise the NEP that was submitted, because these still have projects that were inserted from the time when at least it has been testified that this practice was being done. And with prices this high, it's already been factored in. I think that there is room to give kickbacks, as I've already previously said. And at least in my district, I have asked the Committee on Appropriations to lower the price of the DPWH projects. Kung meron po akong sabihin mong 1.6 billion pesos in DPWH projects sa aking distrito, pwede akong makakuha ng sabihin niyo po 15% out of a total 25% of kickbacks. So sabihin niyo po sa 1.6 billion of DPWH budget for 1st District Batangas, there's a potential 400 million pesos in kickbacks. And dahil hindi ko kukunin yun, hiningi ko sa Committee on APRO na ibaba na lang yung mga presyo, yung 1.6 going 1.2, or actually yung road projects na 1B going 700M na lang, so that the savings can be used for other projects in my district. But again, unfortunately, my district has been affected in terms of budgetary allocation because some of these big buyers of budgets, as reported, won't put projects in my district because they know that in my district engineering office, bawal ang pagluluto ng bidding at bawal ang kickback. Kaya siguro ang incentive ay ilagay na lang sa distrito kung saan may rigging of bidding at may kickback. Pero sa akin po, meron po akong naranasan na may mga lumapit at alam ko na may mga tao, kasama ang mga nabanggit ko kanina, na may hawak na malaking pondo at kung gusto ko sana mapalaki ang budget ng aking distrito, pumayag na lang ako sana na iluto nila ang biddings sa aking distrito, magka-kickback sila, pero magkaroon naman ng project ang aking distrito. Kung sinabi naman sa mga Senate hearings, 35 to 50% of contract price goes to a project, at least nakatulong sa aking distrito. Pero ako, hindi sang-ayon sa practice na ito, pero ang unfortunate consequence is yung mga distrito kung saan walang kickback, nababawasan ng budget based on the incentives of the system. My third and last point is a policy solution. We've already proposed that prices be decreased by 25%, and I would add that budgets should be allocated based on a formula, similar to how the internal revenue allotment or national tax allotment are allocated, which is 50% population, 25% land area, and 25% equal sharing. Not only because this is equitable, but because by avoiding discretion, you avoid corruption in the practice of selling budgets. If ERA was allocated based on discretion, there could also be a temptation to sell budgets for kickbacks. But because it is automatically computed, walang nagbibigay ng SOP para sa ERA o NTA. If we can take a look at the last slide that has been prepared, simply by taking a percentage of a budget based on population, we can see that any one of us on Google can derive how much the DPWH budget of a district should be. So I'm just illustrating here how simple it is. You get the fact that the 1st District of Batangas is 0.6% of the country's population. Another district could be 0.7%, and multiply that by the DPWH budget. That at least is a starting point. But the allocation of budgets in past and in the currently proposed 2026 budget is very far from this system, because there is a baseline that is not largely based on population, and then there is the discretion to allocate projects on top of that. And the point that I'm making in today's press briefing is that a lot of that non-allocable budget, of which there is available data that can be disclosed, has been reported to be given in exchange for consideration. And the consequence of this system is that yung distrito na walang kickback ay nababawasan ng budget, at yung distrito na may kickback ay binibigyan ng budget. And to wrap this up with a solution for the 2026 budget, we can give an example. If we lower the budget by 25% on 600 billion, there will be 150 billion in savings. Even less, let's say 100 billion pesos in savings. And we can see that based on the populations of many districts in the country, they don't even get half of what their fair share would be. I hope that after we see how much wrong there is in the current proposed DPWH budget, there will be this reduction in prices, and that the savings can be allocated to the districts that have not gotten their fair share based on population, so that we hit two birds with one stone. We lower prices, and from what could have gone to kickbacks, we instead can fund needed projects in underserved congressional districts. On a final note, I am thankful that Secretary Dizon said in his press con last Friday that he would like to do something like this for the 2027 budget, but to avoid more contractor-sponsored projects and inequitable allocation of budget in the 2026 budget, I believe there's still time to do this for the 2026 budget. Thank you.
So the floor is now open for questions po. Sino pong gustong mauna? Okay, Marian Enriquez po of News 5.
So just to clarify, sir, you're accusing Secretary Dizon na may mga bago siyang inad na new projects, ni-replace yung new projects from Bunoan, and Dizon has connections po sa mga contractors. Kailangan niya i-disclose yung connections na yon. Sinasabi niyo po na yung members ng team ni Dizon ay mga contractors. Yet, all of these are hearsay. Wala po kayong ebidensyang maipresenta sa amin?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to say that I'm accusing, but that I am asking him to disclose and be transparent on whatever connections he or members of his team might have. Let me first go with what are the facts. The facts are that, first, in the Senate budget hearings, it has already been disclosed that there are insertions into the budget with the involvement of contractors giving consideration. And in my own personal experience, I have been approached by DPWH officials with lists from contractors saying they will propose it into the budget, and that came into the budget of DPWH. And that it has been reported that this is widespread. Kung meron sa distrito ko, baka mas marami pa sa ibang mga distrito. So this is the context before Secretary Dizon came into the picture. And I have great respect for the real improvements that have been done in DPWH since Secretary Dizon came into the picture. And so I am relaying what I have heard from multiple sources, that Secretary Dizon or members of his team have connections with DPWH contractors. I was told by one source, some in his team are contractors. And yes, this is just what I was told. And I was told by another person that others on his team, even those who are not contractors, have been talking to contractors at may hinihingi. And maybe after I make this statement, some people can actually come out and say, yes, may hiningi ang mga opisyales ng DPWH sa amin. I say this, of course, sensitively acknowledging that we have to work with the DPWH on the budget and on the projects in our district being implemented well. And I hope that this does not get taken personally. And I am not saying this in a political context. I'm saying this from a intent for there to be reform based on the proposals that I have made for DPWH. But I would summarize everything that I'm saying by saying that I am asking Secretary Dizon, in the interest of transparency, to disclose all of his and his team members' connections, discussions, and interests in contractors and companies that do business with DPWH.
Okay, sir.
Next question. Marivic Trinidad of
MDT.
MDT.
Sir, when did you learn about this contractors? And hindi ba ninyo po ito na-raise before the passing of the Yun doon sa budget deliberations po of the budget sa House. And have you tried talking to Secretary Dizon in personal po about this?
I think all of us have been learning a lot over the past few months about how DPWH works, including from the Senate and Congress hearings. And I have been quite active in discussions in Congress on proposed lowering of prices, equitable allocation of budget. And as a member of the Appropriations Committee, I have to clear, of course, what I say during the budget deliberation process, including in the hearing. I've had a lot of discussions with other members of Congress, but of course I have to also balance that with respect for the leadership and the committee, and was hoping that my recommendations be taken into consideration. But as you also know, on Monday, citing that the price of the DPWH projects has not been decreased, I voted against the 2026 General Appropriations Bill because, again, I've wanted these changes to be made during the deliberations in the House. When I saw that they were not made, I voted against. And now I am here to share more in hopes na pwedeng ayusin pa ang 2026 budget. It is not too late to fix the 2026 budget. Oh, actually yun, yung may contractor mismo sa team, I just heard about it a few days ago. But the speculation that they're talking to contractors, that they're going after the contractors from the time of Secretary Bonoan, but will be replacing them with favored contractors of their own. I think in Philippine culture, that's normal. And in fact, surprising that it hasn't been brought out yet. Because that would be the logical expectation, given the serious problems of our system. Again, Secretary Dizon has been regarded as a reformer, and he's done a much better job, of course, than than the one he replaced. But that again, I think because of the public temperature right now, no one should be beyond scrutiny. So I think it's only fair that we give Secretary Dizon the chance to be transparent and disclose if there's any truth to what we've heard. I think it would be good to ask members of Congress what they know. Because I am one out of 317. I'm sure there's many more in the 317 that know more. So I think it will be good for our country if we just all be transparent now about what we know.
Next question po is Krisha Subing-Subing of Inquirer.net.
Kong, hello po. Kong, sorry. Andito ka na rin lang naman po, but can you name who was it that you heard ay contractor or has connections to contractors?
Aminin ko na, yung mga tao na kinakausap ko, worried na yung sinasabi nila sa akin, sasabihin ko sa press briefing. Kaya, ironically, yung kaharap nyo ngayon, hindi yung pinakamaraming alam. Kasi yung mga maraming alam, hindi nagpe-press briefing. Pero I'm hoping that by bringing this out and again, giving Secretary Dizon the chance to respond, that the truth will come out.
If you can't name, siguro sir,
So talagang pinipiga ko na ayaw sabihin eh. No,
how
yung sino yung contractor. Pero sino yung kumakausap sa mga contractors, let me just say this. It is not surprising, I think, that to say that may mga kilala silang contractor. I mean, all of us know people who are in so many fields, right? So it should not be a surprise to say that. But so I think it's fair to say lahat naman ng mga tao sa DPWH, maraming mga kilalang contractor, di ba? So like now, we're being called on to disclose our SALNs. Kung DPWH official ka, you should disclose yung mga kilala mong mga contractor at paano mo sila kilala. Pero, yung pinaka hard evidence dyan, kung meron kang interest sa kumpanya na nangongontrata sa DPWH.
Kong, if you can't name names, how high up in the DPWH organization?
Reporting to Secretary Dizon daw.
So sa Office of the Secretary?
You're saying USEC po contractor.
Again,
Meron.
if I knew, I would say it now.
So, ano
But,
po yung ano po ba, like, what can you say to us na lang po? Na, you know, at least may makuha kaming information about what you're
Appointee
saying.
of Secretary Dizon. Actually, I was told it's not just one. So, I was told that appointees of Secretary Dizon are contractors. At, hindi. Member of Congress. I mean, actually,
Anong basis
kung
nun?
sinong kausap ko, 50 pa silang mas maraming alam. Hindi nga expert sa DPWH yung kausap ko eh. Kaya, a lot of people in this house know more than me. I'm just the one in front of you right now. So, by bringing this out, I hope that a lot more information will come out in the coming days on who the DPWH appointees are that are contractors. And again, you should already assume that they know contractors, right? So that's not really news. But they should disclose who they know and how they know them, and if they've talked to them since they were appointed to the DPWH.
Next question po is Vivian Gulya of ABS-CBN News.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, how credible is this information of yours? Meron po bang proof na inoffer yung mga nagsasabi po nito for you to believe it?
So that this practice was done in the time of Secretary Bonoan has already been attested to in the hearings and
No.
substantiated by my Viber messages. And I would add,
This connection ng contractors or mga contractors sa team ni Sec Dizon, ano po yung proof na inoffer sa inyo para to make it seem credible?
okay, I'm saying this now because I think it's credible. And in fact, I was told it's multiple. So even if it's just one of the multiple, then we've already proven the point. I trust the information that I received.
So verbal lang po ito, na kinuwento sa inyo.
Well, if someone is indeed a contractor, then there will be some evidence that will attest that they are a contractor.
But it was not presented to you.
It was not presented to me. But I was also told by another source that another one of Secretary Dizon's appointees has been asking requests from contractors already. So again, it's more verbal, but from multiple sources.
Thank you.
But okay, what else can I attest? That he was asked to share information that he said he would share, that he has not shared, and that information is readily available to share. So again, I'm just trying to weave together these different data points to say, what are we trying to hide?
Sir, are you in talks with, Secretary Dizon na nakakausap mo ba siya?
Yes, actually,
Anong sabi po niya dito sa mga requests po ninyo? Yung, kumbaga parang ang lumalabas is you're challenging him to disclose everything that he knows. Ano po ba? Mayroon po ba siyang reply man lang sa inyo?
well, I wrote an open letter last Monday, which we have not received direct reply to, but the press conference he gave last Friday, I believe, responded to some points, including the lowering of the prices. And again, I would like to thank Secretary Dizon for being a true reformer insofar as he has committed to lower the prices to some extent. We look forward to see by what extent he lowers them. He said in our September 17 budget hearing, where my exchange with him was recorded, that he will lower it by at least 10%. But I think it can be lowered by more. Up to 25, I would say, is reasonable. But if somewhere in between 10 to 25, that would be good. And again, whatever allegations there are, if he lowers them by 25%, he's proving that he's not getting any kickbacks. But I have not talked to Secretary Dizon about his connection with contractors, of course. But I would just confide that every congressman's motive for a DPWH budget hearing is for their district, right? So for my part, I would say I'm saying these things because I want the best for my district. But I also want the best for the whole country and other districts. Because if we lower prices and end corruption, the savings can be shared with all districts.
Sir, sorry, ihabol ko lang. If you have comment dito sa pag-livestream ng BICAM, will this address yung mga doubts?
No, because I think that Congress and Senate are the focus of scrutiny on the DPWH budget. And what I'm saying is the NEP is full of insertions of contractors and other sponsors. And the DPWH Office of the Secretary can bear all of this information. So whatever you see in the floor of Congress and Senate is only the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is in the office of the DPWH Secretary. Gawa na yung budget eh. In fact, lalong kailangang amendahan ng budget. Dahil dumalabas nga sa mga committee hearings after the budget was devised na may ganito palang mga katiwalian sa paggawa ng budget. So in fact, it's wrong to say that we should not have congressional insertions in the budget. Because if the original NEP has these alleged contractor-sponsored projects, then if we want to reduce corruption, first of all, we lower prices across the board, and then we take out the contractor-sponsored projects and put in the projects that are really needed by our districts, which, again, I'm just being transparent. In my district's case, what we need is classrooms, because I'm advocating for budget based on population, because we have double, triple, quadruple the population of other districts, and if we're only getting the same budget as an average district, then kawawa naman yung mga bata sa aking distrito na kailangan na makipagsiksikan dahil kulang ang budgets na binibigay sa mga malalaking distrito.
Next question po, Yanes Capanti of GMA News Online.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, since you mentioned these are appointees of Secretary Dizon, would you say na nagkulang rin siya sa due diligence in vetting these appointees?
Actually, you can background check on Google the new appointees in the DPWH and find that there have been allegations of corruption to them in the past. So I think you can do your own research, and it's a bit surprising in the media that this hasn't been questioned yet, because I think our country right now is in need of hope. And we have seen in Secretary Dizon a possible chance for reform in the DPWH. He will truly be a hero if after this press briefing, he will be the one to come clean on all of the connections to contractors of the new appointees in DPWH, and all the times he's been offered or they have been offered kickbacks, and to lower prices and commit to end kickbacks in DPWH.
Sir, follow-up lang po. So, Secretary Dizon is aware that members of his
Yes.
team are...
Okay po. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Basta, sir, ang gusto ko, transparency and equitable allocation ng budget ng DPWH. Ayokong paboran lang ang aking distrito. Gusto ko wala ng korupsyon sa buong bansa. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Basta, sir, pag may savings, sana po matulungan natin ang buong bansa pag may savings, pag bawasan natin ang presyo sa DPWH. Yes. Thank you. Actually, as I said in the press con, I really don't know who's the contractor in your team, but if you can ask them and come clean to the public, then that would, I think, be a sign that there's real change now in DPWH. Meron bang kumausap sa contractor recently? Yes, as I said naman po, I have not even been told who in your team is a contractor. I am just relaying what I heard. Pero I think it's unavoidable na DPWH officials talk to contractors. So maybe Sec Vince can explain what was discussed in those meetings. Thank you very much. And then pag ibaba naman natin yung presyo, pakita natin na wala tayong pinoprotektahang kita ng contractor. Pwede nating i-anunsyo na 25%. Kino-compute pa. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. And even beyond the appointees, of course, we know that the bureaucracy of DPWH is still intact from the past. So it would be good to also use this as a warning to others who are contractors in their bureaucracy. So, the DPWH will do a systematic search of who are the contractors and to make sure that there are no more contractors in DPWH. Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Sir, si Sec ba ang inyong kausap?
out of respect for the person, you can derive from my conversation that he is from there and from DPWH. And baka hindi na ako tatawagan pag sabihin ko eh. Pero at least like I can say that their response is kung meron man, tatanggalin nila. Of course, there should not be contractors who work in DPWH. And by the way, this is very widely known in government, but maybe should be known by the public. And the gentleman on the phone just admitted it. Among the regional directors and district engineers, there's so many contractors who work in DPWH because it's logical. If they're giving contracts to contractors, why not set up contracting companies themselves? That's from the DPWH officials themselves. Now, they're saying they will search who among the new appointees is a contractor and remove them.
Sir, may commitment ba yung House ilalahat nila yung mga kilala nilang contractors? Magiging mga appointees nila? May commitment?
Hahanapin daw pa nila sino yung contractor sa kanila. Pero yung mga pag-uusap nila sa contractors, hiningi ko din na ilahad nila. So, of course, they're saying that they're not aware who's the contractor among them. I believe that hopefully will be clarified soon. But that, of course, they have spoken also with contractors. And I hope na ilahad din nila ano yung pinag-usapan ng bagong appointees ni Sec Vince sa mga contractors na kinuusap nila.
Sir, how close is that person to Secretary? That person on the phone?
Mataas.
Is he very close to the secretary? USEC, ASEC, COS,
DPWH
ED.
official.
Executive team inside DPWH.
Kasi you said na open letter, hindi sinagot. Ngayon may tumawag na sa inyo.
Hindi, sinabi naman nila na ibaba nila yung presyo. Pero yung disclosure of data, again, I have the data that other members of Congress have asked for. Today, they can release it. So, I still hope that they can respond to all these points.
Sir, yung challenge niyo po kay Secretary Dizon na ibaba yung halaga ng DPWH
Kino-compute pa daw nila.
projects. Yeah. Hindi ba yun yung dahilan kung bakit din po mayroon kayong challenge sa kanya na i-disclose yung kanyang connection with contractors or yung part ng team niya na may connection sa contractors? Hindi ba parang it's a sort of warning or threat against the Transportation Secretary?
Kasi kung ibaba yung presyo, wala nang source of kickbacks. So, I don't think there's going to be as much risk anymore of conflicts of interest in awarding DPWH contracts. Kumbaga, lugi pa nga yung contractor kung mababa na yung presyo eh. Hindi
Kaya
na siya
po
conflict.
nag-resort din kayo dito sa challenge nyo na ito dahil hindi kayo napagbigyan dun sa request nyo po, sa prior request nyo.
Okay, so all congressmen want what's best for their district, and in my case, it's not out of I want extra. It's I have maybe top 20 in population in the country, in the district, and that I in the budget hearings have also said we should give budget based on population, which has not been granted yet. So I'm disclosing this as me doing my job for my district. But what I propose, however, is that it not just be for me, for the whole country, we lower prices, save at least 100 billion pesos, and use that to help the underserved districts.
Sir, sorry, clarify lang. Kasi when you said na ibaba yung presyo ng DPWH projects 25% para maiwasan na yung 150 billion na kickbacks. I understand that you just wanted na mawala yung mga kickbacks nga. Pero sinasabi mo po, he's proving that he is not getting kickbacks kapag ibaba na ni Dizon or ng DPWH nga ito. So you're saying, sir, na kung hindi niya ibaba to, hindi bumaba yung presyo, kung kumukha ka na kickback?
very suspicious why someone will not want to lower prices, which is why I'm thankful that Secretary Dizon has said he will lower prices. That's reason for us to have hope, right? But of course, that's not the only reason that he is directly benefiting from it, but that maybe he wouldn't want to step on the feet of people who are benefiting from it. And to that extent, we should also sympathize with his situation. But that if he lowers the prices, wala na tayong papag-uusapan na potential corruption sa office ng Secretary ng DPWH kasi pinakita na nila, ayaw nila ng kickback. Again, I'd say there's so much focus on investigating who knows who and talk to who about what. We cannot get to the bottom of all of this alleged corruption in government. But if we lower prices, that is a very clear sign that we don't want corruption. So that's why I'm focused on proposing lower prices.
Red Mendoza po of Manila Times.
If you're saying na you have to lower your prices po or lower the prices ng mga projects ng DPWH, baka naman po mag-resort sila to substandard na gamit. Kasi when you say lower prices, baka sabihin nila, ay, baka pwede naman nating tipirin yung, kasi mababa yung budget. How can you resolve, yun yung first question ko, how can you resolve na dapat hindi substandard yung magiging projects if you're proposing a lower budget for the DPWH?
Sabi nga ng iba sa Facebook, dapat lower by 50% eh. Kasi ang sabi sa Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearings, less than 50% of the contract price actually goes to the projects. But the problem is if the district engineering offices will not do the quality control and audit the compliance on the program of works, which is why lower prices is not all. But if you lower it by just enough, then you will at least reduce the corruption because it's already been tested in the time of Secretary Babe Singson, who lowered the prices by 10%. Ang sabi dito, nabawasan ng corruption dahil binawasan ng 10%. Now, if you reduce it by 25%, there's a valid argument that you will also be reducing the quality from going from 10 to 25. Unless you have a very good reform already in the district engineering offices. But I think it should be more than 10.
My last question na lang, Kong, kasi of course, you are part of the budget hearings over the past few weeks, including nga dun sa DPWH budget. Have you talked to Chair Swansing about this? Kasi parang ang dating sa amin na may alam kayo pero hindi alam ni Chair Swansing yung mga nangyayari. So, have you talked to Chair Swansing about this? And if ever man, meron ba siyang reaction to that? And did she respect your vote na no for the budget? Kasi carb kayo na majority eh.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the House for allowing free speech because we are using their venue on their live stream, which proves that there is free speech in the 20th Congress. Second, that my focus is on the problem that emanates from the DPWH. And I hope that Congress can help solve the problem. But of course, there's so much interest in not solving it also. So the fact that we lowered the DPWH budget from 880 to 625 is a great achievement. I just want to lower it to 450. But from the start, I have been giving my opinion to the Committee on Appropriations. They took some, like that flood control reduction, into consideration. But the revised GAB was given to members Friday morning and then voted on that afternoon and then third reading this Monday. And I haven't been able to, and in general, there's no time to really talk about all the issues because this is just one small issue in the budget, right? Or one issue in the budget. But that's why it's an ongoing process. The Senate budget hearing of DPWH is next Monday. The budget will still only be finalized at the end of the year. There's still time.
Last na lang. Are you willing to send a letter to Senator Win Gatchalian, the Finance Committee head, to outline all of the points you raised here sa press con?
Actually, I really want to give credit to Senator Gatchalian and many other senators. Senate President Tito Soto also made a statement in an interview a few days ago that he thinks there should be an across-the-board reduction of 15 to 20%. Senator Bamakino, during the Blue Ribbon Committee hearing, was the one who asked, what is the percentage of a project that goes into the project? And that's when USEC Roberto Bernardo said almost 100% of bids are rigged, and only 35 to 50%, according to DE Alcantara, actually goes into the project. And I think Senator Bam also said that he will research on whether the CMPD and the DUPA is overpriced. So, napakagaling ng mga senators sa 20th Congress. Hindi po ito idea ko lang. Nagkataon lang una ang Kongreso magtalakay ng DPWH budget. But I'm sure higit pa ang mga analysis na ilalabas nila sa DPWH Senate budget hearing.
Any questions po? Ate Rosalicos po, UNTV.
Ikaw yung nag-suggest niyan, ha?
Allegations. Do you want the ICI to investigate
Well,
Secretary Vince?
Secretary Dizon was in the ICI this morning about others. And I, again, do believe that Secretary Vince is doing a good job, given the very challenging job that he has. But that none of us is perfect and beyond reproach. And what's the venue? I don't know. And it doesn't occur to me until you ask that question that that's even an option. Kasi what I'm trying to do is prevent future corruption. Because Secretary Vince is new, right? And there's some that you have to go out of your way to change. But there's some that's on your lap, and if you want to change, you can change. So I don't think that the forum is investigation, because the rigging of bids of the 2026 budget has yet to be committed. If there is kickbacks paid next year, then the DPWH officials should be responsible for kickbacks anywhere in the country. But October 2025, we are deliberating on the 2026 DPWH budget. Ang sabi nga, a pound of prevention is worth an ounce of cure. It's so much easier to prevent corruption if we fix the budget than to run after all these people who have already stolen from the past or future DPWH budget. So I'm really pleading with Congress, Senate, and the DPWH that we fix the 2026 budget. I have been prompted also by Secretary Vince's remark last Friday that he wants to fix the budget for 2027. And I really plead that we revisit the 2026 DPWH budget because the public wants to see real results. There's so many big numbers being thrown around about how much we can recover from the already stolen funds, but there's still, I've estimated 150 billion pesos in kickbacks in the current budget. If we lower the DPWH budget, it will be a great accomplishment to the leadership of Secretary Vince that if we lower it by 100 billion, that we prevented 100 billion pesos of corruption. So I am praying that Secretary Vince will do the right thing and be a hero. Thank you.
Sir, last na talaga ito. Sorry po. Worst case scenario, are you also willing to reveal your source and submit them in ICI for investigation?
Actually, if you stand outside of this room when Congress is in session, you can ask every single one of them what they know. It's not only a few people in Congress that knows things about what I'm talking about. So the reason why I'm saying this, and I believe that more information will come out after I say this, is because there's so much information out there if you just ask the other members than me.
Sir, yung kausap po ninyo kanina, source nyo po yun, di ba?
Yan yung isa sa mga accused.
Oh, okay. Isa sa mga accused.
But
alam po ni Secretary Dizon,
you know,
na
in their
nakakausap
defense,
niya siya.
they really want to do a good job, right?
Oh.
And they take the public's feedback into account. That's why I hope that coming out of this, we will slash the budget, prevent corruption, and I believe that Secretary Vince can be known as a truly great reformer in DPWH. Because I believe they will say that they will find who the contractors in DPWH are and remove them.
Si Secretary Bunoan po ba yun?
Former na siya.
Okay po. Okay po. Sige, sir.
Hindi. I mean, alleged. I mean, that's a strong word eh. No, I mean, I already said a while ago naman eh. Hindi daw nila alam sino eh. Kaya, no, I really don't know. No. Isang appointee. Pero I really don't know who it is. I'm just saying that I've heard from several that there are. But by the way, no, because I don't know who is the possible contractor because I was not told who, but I was actually told multiple, so I don't know who. Anyone's possible. If I was told who, I could have said it by now. But by the way, I would really say let's not just focus on the appointees under Secretary Vince because you could also do your own research. And the gentleman on the phone admitted, among the regional directors and district engineers, as is logically incentive by them, many have ended up being contractors of DPWH projects. Appointee. But again, we want solution, and I think they are committed to solve the problem. Thank you.
Okay.
But I would also like to make prominent the request. Please share the information on the budget per district, like what I have here, but please officially release it to the public, and the proponents behind the projects, and how much is the non-allocable, and the proponents for the non-allocable. Thank you.